One of the things that I heard recently while I was speaking at Chicago Midwinter, where the dental assistant said they take a lot of work home with them and some of the stresses and struggles that they have.
A lot of times when people are taking work from one place to the other or taking home to work or whatever the crossover is, you don't realize how much of an energy drain that is on you and what your resources are.
How can we make those boundaries between work and home a little more divided so we can get that rest and that peace?
Being able to put boundaries in place and learned how to do that in a healthy way, you're really able to be the architect of your own life.
What's the biggest lesson that you hope people learn from it, if you don't mind?
No one's coming to save you.
You know, I've always had just one goal for Dental Assistant Nation, and that was to reach as many dental assistants around the world as I possibly could. So thank you for being a part of the community. And I want to make sure that you have hit the subscribe button so that you can not only help us spread the message and we can grow our reach, but also to make sure that you are getting the latest episodes delivered right to you the moment that we drop them. We are all about dental assistant education and empowerment here at Dental Assistant Nation, and we want to make sure that we are reaching as many dental assistants as possible. So thank you in advance, not only for being a part of this community, but for helping us spread the word.
Hey everybody, welcome back into another edition of the Dental Assistant Nation podcast. My name is Kevin Henry, founder of Dental Assistant Nation. And again, my thanks to Care Credit for bringing you this episode. And I'm thrilled to welcome on Anne Karber. Anne, how are you today?
I'm well, thank you, Kevin. I appreciate you having me.
Oh, I'm so excited to have you on. All the research I've done about what you bring and the things that you speak on, I think it's so relevant for our dental assisting audience. And I'm excited to dive in today. But before we do, I'd love for our audience to just know a little bit more about you.
Yeah, I am an entrepreneur and someone that brings a lot of passion to this life for everything that I touch. I've recently become a podcast host in the last couple of years, and now I have added author to my title as well, because some of the things that I've learned, I feel like I just want to scream from the rooftops because they've been so impactful for me on my journey. So yeah, I'm an all-around hustler. I always have been, and really kind of dive in head first with everything that I do. I'm a big cannonballer in life and highly recommend that to other people because I think it's really important to be able to take charge of your own life. So I just kind of model that behavior and spread my fairy dust accordingly.
Well, the fairy dust is very impactful. I mean, the research that I've done ahead of this podcast with everything that you do, like you said, you're very forthright. And I love that about you because that helps get the message across. And I know one thing that you are so passionate about is the setting of boundaries for people. And I'm wondering, what is it about setting boundaries that's so hard for people sometimes?
You know, I think a lot of times we've been raised to be people pleasers. And so we're always constantly trying to make the other person happy, whoever the other person is, right? That could be a friend, family, work. But when we realize that the world is better when we really take care of ourselves first and take care of our own needs, it becomes critical to set those boundaries because that's really what the ground rules are for how we're going to engage in life. And I think a lot of people think boundaries maybe are unkind or they keep people away or whatever. But what it really does is it just protects your energy and makes you be able to be the best version of yourself that you can. So, you know, for me, I explain boundaries in kind of staying in your own lane for all sorts of things. I like to stay in my own lane for me. I like other people to stay in their own lanes for them, not to come in my lane. I used to have a really hard time with going in other people's lanes pretty regularly. And I realized that that's kind of a waste of your energy to do that. And so now that I really understand boundaries in a better way, I can just be a ninja with how I throw them up in my life. And by doing that, it really makes a huge difference in how I engage with life. And so I think if more people embraced that of being able to put boundaries in place and learned how to do that in a healthy way, you're really able to be the architect of your own life by doing that. Boundaries are so incredibly important.
I couldn't agree more. You know, one of the things that I heard recently while I was speaking at Chicago Midwinter, where the dental assistant said they take a lot of work home with them and some of the stresses and struggles that they have at work, and it spills over and it just kind of creates this domino effect that affects them then the next day. How can we make those boundaries between work and home a little more divided so we can get that rest and that peace whenever we finally get off work?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think a lot of times when people are taking work from one place to the other or taking home to work or whatever the crossover is, you don't realize how much of an energy drain that is on you and what your resources are. You know, in the book, I talk a lot about that I think energy is our biggest resource. And when you're taking things back and forth to one or you're having having a hard time separating between that, you're not able to fully plug into your personal life or fully plug into your work life if you have that bleed over. So you have to really figure out whatever the tips and the tricks are for your own individual self of like, okay, I'm going to, when I'm driving home, just kind of almost feel like you're going through a little bit of a portal of like, I'm leaving all of that there. There's nothing I can do about it when I'm there anyways. And so being able to just really figure out your method of separating that so that you're not just letting your mind wander on the things that maybe happened that day. If there's nothing that you can do about it and there's nothing that you can learn from it, then you're just wasting time and energy. Stop doing that.
I know in your book, in your podcast, and other things, you're such a believer in focusing that energy toward the right things.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe sometimes we don't even know what we're supposed to focus our energy toward. How do we
Yes.
get those priorities in place in our life, in your mind?
Yeah. The biggest thing is starting with understanding where you're currently spending your energy. That's step one, because so many of us don't realize where we're actually spending that resource. And when we look at it, we realize we're getting exactly what we're asking for in life because we're focusing on things that are maybe not what we want, or focusing our energy on things that are fueling maybe dramas in life, dramas at work, things that we don't really want. When you realize that your energy is literally fueling those things, and if you just took the fuel away, which is your energy, those things would automatically resolve. So we have these dramas at work or these dramas that happen with things. The more attention that you give it, the more that it fuels it. And so you're literally inviting that suffering into your life on your own. So that self-awareness is really such a powerful thing because sure, it's like, okay, I'm the one that's doing this to myself. But from the other side of that coin, I'm the one that's doing this to myself, which means I have control over being able to stop. Once you really have that savage self-awareness of being able to realize I'm the one that's calling these things in, you can make the change to not do that anymore, which is the biggest piece of that. Then you can kind of take from that point, getting clear on, okay, what do I want to be spending my energy on? But you have to be able to identify where it's going currently so that you understand what your resource even is.
How did you kind of gain that mindset? What did it take for you to be able to focus that energy in the right place?
Yeah, a Mack truck. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Yeah, no, it's pretty wild. I just realized that I had things going on in my life. This is about a decade ago, but I had things going on in my life that I wasn't happy about what was happening. And I just kept thinking life was happening to me. And then I really just had this epiphany of really waking up and starting to dive in. And the further I got in, the further I realized I'm the one holding the paintbrush. Like when you look at your life, because there's certain things we can't change, but most things we can change, not because you have control and you're this control freak, but you do have changes over or control over your small choices. Those small choices lead to big impact, right? And then you're able to really be the architect of your life, but you have to start with that savage self-awareness, understanding what your resource is, understanding that you're the one that's holding the paintbrush and you're the one that's fueling your own suffering. A lot of people just don't realize that. I didn't realize that prior to kind of going on my self-exploration journey. And now that I see it, I can't unsee it. I explain energy as Skittles to people in the book because I think a lot of people don't realize how powerful energy is, right? Our energy, our focus, our attention. And we have all of these things in life that are literally trying to rob those things from you. They're trying to take your attention, take your focus, take all of that. That's yours. And that's your most powerful resource. So being able to visualize it and quantify it and know that you can spend your energy with mental, with emotional, with physical, and you just have the same amount, right? You say have the same finite amount. It's not just infinite. So when you're out, you're out. And realizing then, okay, do I really want to replay that drama over again in my head, whether it's something from work or something from home? What am I gaining from that? And what could I be doing with that energy if I decided I didn't want to just let my thoughts be on a nasty rerun in my head? Those kind of things, being able to be self-aware about that really helps you be able to take charge of your own life. But you have to be able to look. You have to be willing to look.
I love the Skittles analogy. I love that. That's great. Another thing that I love, whenever I go on your website, and we're going to link to that in the show notes just so everybody knows, but there's a picture of you with this lion.
Yes.
And it's just a very bold, in-your-face picture. And I love that because it captures the kind of boldness I think all of us want to have. How do we get to that stage? And maybe how did you get to that stage?
Yeah. I think a lot of times people that mind of ours gets in the way. way. It gets in the way and tells us we're not good enough. Why would anyone listen to us? Why would we be the ones? But the problem is that mind is just a tool that has gone rogue, basically, right? Because if you let your mind just go, 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 go on things, it will just run away with you. So you really have to be able to work on that mental strength to figure that out. And then also understand that you're the main character in your own story. So do some main character energy things, rather than waiting on the sidelines for something to happen. Life is in session right now, right? Today is a gift. Treat it accordingly because you're not guaranteed tomorrow. When you really feel into that and really understand, like, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? You're going to swing for the fence and you're going to fail? Okay. And then what happened, right? Because that's not what defines us. That's just feedback in our life, right? When we have failure, that's just feedback of then readjusting something else. Don't be so afraid to step up to the plate. That's what life is about. I want to look back at the end of my days and say, yes, I really crushed that. I really had an impact on people. I really did the important things. But what that takes is the evidence of today doing something big and bold. And yeah, it may seem scary, but after you do it, that's what builds confidence. That's what makes you say, even if it didn't turn out exactly how you wanted it to, that's just, okay, what did I do here? How did that work out? What would I do different next time? But if you just sit on the sidelines of your own life and do nothing, that's what you're going to get,
Absolutely. No.
Yeah.
Can we have that main character energy? And I'm going to speak for all the dental assistants out there. Whenever we're working for somebody else, can we still have that main character energy at work, even though we're an employee in the practice?
Absolutely. Yeah. Because think about what they bring. I mean, I think about over the course of my life, the dental assistant that I interact with at the dental office is way more important to me than the dentist. No,
There you go.
no offense to the dentists out there, but those are the people that bring the energy to the practice and are the ones that make you feel comfortable about something. And that is definitely main character energy. So really doing what you're doing to the best of your ability, because you do have an impact on so many other people. Do what you do and do it the best that you can.
I'd love for you to just talk for a moment about your book and what's the biggest lesson that you hope people learn from it, if you don't mind.
The Life Hack Playbook has been something to me that has just been so powerful to be able to write. I think the biggest takeaway is just really the self-awareness component of it. I think so many of us in this human experience think someone else is going to come save us, and so it's like we're making excuses about things. We're kind of passing the buck to someone else. The good news is no one's coming to save you. And maybe that seems scary at first, but it's really powerful because then you realize you have the control to be able to save yourself. You have the control to be able to really get yourself out of situations. We have all of these resources available to us. If you come from a positive place where you come from a place of solutions rather than looking for excuses, it will literally change your entire life. Like, come from a place of starting a gratitude journal practice if you don't have one already. It just has you focused on looking for the positive and the good things in life instead of always thinking about, oh, that didn't work out. That didn't work out. Like, I could start a list right now of the things that I don't have and never will have, and I could make that list until the day they put me in the ground. But what good does that do? It's like I would much rather look at all the positive things that I have. Look at all of the wins that I have recently. Look at all the things that are turning out well for me. Even the things that seem like they're hard are actually happening for you, not to you, so that you can learn from them. And so really being able to change your mindset changes everything. You can change your entire life just by changing your mindset.
And is that gratitude journal personal and professional, or is there a separate one?
I just do one, and it just, it has things that bleed over on either side. Sometimes it is professional wins. Sometimes it is personal wins. But I really believe that when you change your mindset like that, like my dad has read my book, and it's funny because I was talking to him the other day, and he's a 79-year-old man. And I was talking to him about the gratitude journal. I said, Dad, it'll change your life. And he says to me, honey, it already has. And if I can do that with a 79-year-old man, my 50-year-old husband, my 18-year-old son, my daughters, I'm telling you, this book is really, really powerful. I encourage people to get a copy. And if you don't love it, send it back and I'll give you your money back. But I'm telling you, you will be able to take tips and tricks out of this that will blow your mind. It's not this super advanced personal improvement. It's almost kind of like the gateway drug of personal improvement so that people understand they can really take control of their own lives and make a big impact for themselves.
Dental assistants are often the key to a patient accepting treatment or not. You're a key part of the patient journey, and so is Care Credit, a health and wellness credit card with flexible financing options so patients can pay over time for care they want or need, subject to credit approval. Want to know how to make sure Care Credit is a part of your practice's offerings? email me at kevin@kevinspeaksdental.com and I'll make sure to help. That's kevin@kevinspeaksdental.com to make sure Care Credit is a part of your practice's offerings. We'll let people know where they can get it, as well as tell us a little bit about the podcast as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can get the Life Hack Playbook on Amazon or any other online retailer where you get the book. You can also check it out on our website, which is letsgetnakedpodcast.com. I have a podcast called Let's Get Naked, and it's not about clothes. It's about vulnerability, and I'm just calling BS on all of the masks and the filters that we have gotten as a society to where we all pretend like we kind of have these amazing lives where our kids don't cry and they eat kale chips and we have six-pack abs and a side hustle on Instagram making millions. I don't think that that does any good for any of our women to look around and see that. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't all try to win. I'm just calling BS on all of the things that kind of happen in life that's messy. You know, I'm almost 50 years old and I have touched every burner on the stove. And the podcast is about really just sharing that and having other people that are willing to come on and be vulnerable about a whole range of topics that just talks about life. You know, it's actually really powerful, and I encourage everyone to take a listen and see if that's your vibe.
We're going to have the links to where you can find the book, the podcast, Anne's website, all that good stuff in the show notes, because I think you can see why I was excited today to have Anne on. So, Anne, thanks for sharing your wisdom and that passion with our dental assistants. I really do appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. And again, thanks to Care Credit for sponsoring this episode. My thanks to Anne, and thanks to all of you for listening to this. Yeah, I was really excited because I knew that there was a message there that one of you needed to hear, and I hope that you took it away and that you can be that main character in your story and that you don't forget that. Till next time, it's Kevin Henry, founder of Dental Assistant Nation, signing off, and as always, wishing you nothing but success ahead.